Hey everybody, I'm welcome here with Marsha and Noah Oken-berg from Above the Fray. I am Mark Shust. I am the founder of M Academy, a Magento digital course training platform. And I'm here today to talk a little about the Magento community, Meet Magento New York, which is happening in New York City, and that's run by Above the Fray this year. So it's great here to welcome Marsha and Noah. Marsha, if you wanted to get started and just introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll hop over to Noah just so we can meet everybody.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for hosting us. Good to be here. Absolutely. So I am host of Meet Magento New York, and I have been since 2017. It's fantastic to still be doing this. I started in the Magento community with a hosting company back in 2014. So yeah, what is that? 9 years that I've been in this community, and started with Meet Magento New York in 2017. And I have to say, if anything fast tracks your intro to the community, it's an event like this. So getting to know the who's who in our community and knowing them well, it has been a fantastic journey. Glad to still be here, and so glad that Above the Fray is working with me this year. Noah, I'll hand over to you.
Right on. Thanks for having us too on the show, Mark. Our whole team is obviously huge fans of your work, and so a very frequently brought up references in our various Slack channels. So it's an honor to be here and to be able to talk a little bit about this event. My name's Noah. As you already introduced, I am a co-founder of Above the Fray, along with Erin Hunt, and she's our chief creative officer. We actually worked together, I think, going on 12 years now. So we've got our start, that's our start in the Magento world was back in 2012, I think, when we were two of the first three employees at another agency here locally in Portland, Oregon. And then since then, I've been at another Magento partner agency. I have been a part of that community since then, usually the direct sort of connect with the partner programs and things like that, seeing all the different phases and shifts through the years, and was happy enough to, when Marsha approached me this year, to take this event on. So it's been a fun ride.
Great to meet both of you. Yeah, I remember getting my start, I think it was in 2010, 2011, and knew nothing about Magento, kind of got thrown in the mix. And I know the first time I kind of just felt palpable from Magento community was Magento Imagine, which was way back in the day. It was an awesome event out in Vegas. But since, the Meet Magento events sort of kind of came out of nowhere, it seems, after that. And I always liked that because they were always very more intimate than Imagine or Summit, these larger events. So
I want to ask, Mark, so how soon after your intro to the Magento community did you go to Imagine?
Probably within the first year. I believe it was maybe, couldn't have been 5 or 6 months. It was probably about a year and a half, I'm guessing. But yeah.
Just thrust right into the fire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, you, I guess, how did you first get involved in the Magento community and sort of the event aspect of things?
Yep. So I was really fortunate to go to Meet Magento Vietnam. That was back in like 2015. So that was only a year after I'd started in the Magento community. Now, you probably already know this. So the Magento Association, and that's the umbrella under which all of the Meet Magento events happen. That started out as MMA, so the Meet Magento Association, and that was the brainchild of Thomas Golitz and Thomas Fleck. So when I went to Meet Magento Vietnam, Thomas was there, so I got to meet him and understand his vision for these events, exactly why he started the association. And it was also good timing. So once I heard more about that, It was coincidental. Meet Magento New York was looking for a new host. I was interested in hosting it, and the rest, as they say, is history. But, I think that was a good intro for me. Like, it wasn't just about an event, right? And I think we'll say a bit more about this later. It's understanding the philosophy and why a Meet Magento event is different, and what that opportunity is, what it presents for the community.
Yeah, and it's held all over the world now, isn't it? I don't even know all of the places it's
Yeah.
it's a Singapore event.
It is an international series of events. And okay, there's no way I'm going to remember this, so I wrote this down. So I'm going to be reading this. Give me a second. Yeah. So I've been
Cliff notes
fortunate
are
to
fair.
go to a lot of them. And, they all have the same philosophy in mind, but keep in mind, they're different markets. So they all capitalize in a different way on what the opportunity is. But so I've been to, and I'm not saying these are all the events, Meet Magento Vietnam, Netherlands, Germany, Greece, Romania, Poland, UK, Baltics, Spain, Bangkok, Singapore, Indonesia, Brazil, China, and then India.
Wait, are those all the ones you've been to, or those are all the events themselves?
Nope, that's the events I have been to, and I'm
Wow.
at some of them. Yeah. So yeah, definitely international. And they all have these unique flavors, which is absolutely fantastic. And then from those events, it's fun to see the hosts and participants of those environments at Meet Magento New York, which is usually an international event as well, and have them experience how the New York event is similar but also different, and get their feedback on it. It's been quite a journey, and all of this has happened, since 2014.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine. I have students all over the world too in my course platform. I think I just counted over 80 countries. It's crazy how big
Wow.
and expansive the Magento ecosystem is once you get into it.
Yeah. And if I can throw one more thing in, I think this is so, maybe it's not unique. I like to think of it as unique, but I think from a speaker's perspective, what I love, and it's not just as a speaker, but I think the Magento community is really welcoming. So getting up on stage, even as, my first time getting up on stage in front of the Magento community, everyone is so supportive. And as a speaker, you feed off of that energy. It really is so fun. Just being at an event like this and interacting with this community. And I think we've gotten that right. Just widen the circle and letting people in.
Totally agree. Ever since even Ben Marks, I remember Vinay Kopp, remember them at the Imagine events. And I think it's just the whole culture that's been around it since the beginning. They're just so inclusive and just helpful, and it's just a great community to be in. So I think, it could be, I think the community has a huge part in the Magento ecosystem of running it. So, what really motivates you to give back to this community, and maybe how are other ways that others can also help give back to this community?
Sure. Yeah. And it really ties into what both of you were just saying. I was fairly new to the e-commerce world when I started at that agency, 12 years ago or what have you. And similarly was kind of thrust into the fire. I think I went to the Imagine event my first year there. And my approach has always just been to sort of connect with people that have already been there, done that. And, I'm just picking up the phone. I'm talking to our competitors. I remember when, Derek Jacobson was down at Levamentham, and he came and did a show, did some event in Portland. And I talked to him afterwards, and he's like, come on down, work from our office anytime. I mean, we were a direct competitor. And there was always sort of that, like, hey, let me help bring you up, instead of, crabs in a barrel mentality that you get in some other communities. And so that was really impactful for me, because we all got to choose where we spend our time. And, unless you really like that sort of destructive type of environment, then you want to be with people that are going to be like that. And so, and it motivates you to give back more to that too, when you know that other folks have done that for you. When you were brand new, or maybe there was just something you didn't know. I'm not a developer. I haven't written a line of code since like my sophomore year in college. But it is a very, engineering heavy environment where there's, a lot of deserved respect for the folks that are the engineers behind it. But it's still, there's not this sort of attitude towards me, developing business. It's like, okay, great. As long as you're contributing and being part of this, you're welcome, and we want to all sort of lift each other up. And so I think, that's a big reason, when Marsha approached me to do this event, this is not something you do because you want to get rich. This is not something you want to do because, of any of those things. You really have to have a love for the community and for the people that are involved with it, or else it's just not going to work. You just won't have the right motivation. You won't have the right sort of, reason for doing it. And so it is things like this, and the Meet Magento events are one of them. But to be able to come together and collaborate. So sponsors are giving dollars and things like that, but they're also giving shining light on it. They're talking to their network. They're bringing other people out. The attendees are doing the same thing. People are coming from all different places in the planet just by showing up and being a part of it. And I think it's just, it's kind of the spice of life. But there's so many different opportunities to get involved. You often have a part of different communities where people are doing code contributions, and, it's the open source nature and that whole side of Magento, itself lends to that, community organization, community powered, people powered environment. So there's not for a lack of ways to get involved. I might be selfish and talk about Meet Magento New York as a way to do it, because, obviously I'm living, eating, breathing that right now as we're gearing up for it. But there's plenty of other ways too.
It is though. So, and we'll come back to this, but I'll have to talk about one of the reasons I approached Noah is that Noah is also on the MA, but more back to my motivation. What Noah just said, it's MMNYC is powered by the people. So I'll go back to Matthias Schreiber, Matthias from Magento Association, right? One of his favorite things to say to me is, I love you, Marsha, but you are so goddamn idealistic. But, it's like, okay, walk the talk. This is the opportunity that Meet Magento New York presents. It is not my event or Above the Phrase event. We're inviting collaboration and participation. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone can, we try to provide the opportunity for everyone to be there and for it to be as inclusive as possible. It doesn't depend on partnerships, level of partnership. Let's take our speaker review process, for example. Noah and I are not on that panel. We don't want to be. It's an independent panel of volunteers. So, even
actually, I kind of do want to be, but I can't be.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Especially, how many, we got 4 times as many submissions as there are spots on stage. That's a lot of submissions to go through.
That's true. Yeah. I like the idea of it. Let's put it that way.
We're trying to create these inclusive environments. And I think I'm going way above, it's about Magento and Adobe Commerce, bringing all of that in, bringing in small, medium, and large enterprises. Everyone is welcome. Everyone has the equal opportunity when they submit talks, because our reviewers receive anonymized data. That's how it should be, right? It's not a perfect process, but we're trying. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to be talking to you today, Mark. It's like, we know this stuff and we're, working so hard, but we want to be sure everyone else understands this is what we're aiming for, and the door is wide open.
One thing you just said, Marsha, that I wanted go back to that, when I've talked to other folks that have wanted to speak and they're like, but I don't think you'd want me talking there. My company's not that big. It's not. And a lot of other events you go to, you see like a lot of these big household names, and it's like, of course that draws people to the events, but the content itself is what people come to like an event like Meet Magento for. You're not just getting window dressing, and a smaller merchant or a freelance engineer could have just as impactful or more so of a story as like a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 50 company can say, or a large agency. And so that's pretty unique for this event. I've been to, we mentioned Imagine. I've been to probably every kind of, like a lot of us, every kind of event in all different industries. And a lot of them just kind of focus on those big brands, the big household names, the famous people and the famous agencies. And I'm not knocking that. That's great. But it's also really refreshing to be able to hear from a broad spectrum of people and to engage with a broad spectrum of people when you're there.
I always appreciate so much that the organizers of these events, you have to be completely selfless, because there's a lot you do that you don't get any return on. And it's kind of like a passion to run these events and conferences. And just went to Meet Magento, Florida not too long ago. Ravi over at Rave Digital put so much effort working in that event, and it turned out awesome. And and it's also just these events are a great place to meet potential clients, current clients. I've met some merchants that we've worked with at these events, and it's great to meet them face to face. That's just something you can't get anywhere else. You can't get online. It's venture just so great to be in if you want to be involved in the Magento ecosystem.
First time I met you in person, Mark, was in Florida. So yeah, perfect example right there.
Great example. Yeah. And this ecosystem, it seems like it keeps changing. How much, what do you think has actually like changed in the last 5 years, 10 years throughout Magento, and just trends in the whole ecosystem you think that sort of play into these events and just the ecosystem in general?
Yeah, nothing's changed at all. It's pretty much been exactly the same. Yeah, no, I mean, I would, that's something you could say to get thrown out of of that community. But yeah, I mean, and being part of this for so long, right? And I think we can all agree, like, we've seen a lot of ebbs and flows and changes and, sort of transformations of this Magento community that we've been a part of. And, there've been so many times that people have been like, it's thriving, it's the top of the world. And so many times where people are like, the bottom's dropping out and it's going to go away tomorrow. But we're still here, right? Like and we're still, strong as ever as a community. And I think that's sort of the common thread that I've seen is sort of that resilience. But it takes events like the Meet Magento events, like Meet Magento New York, to kind of have to keep that common thread, to keep that resilience. You can't just have a community on paper. It just doesn't work. That's not what it is, right? And so like things like this coming together, and through all the differences and changes, and keeping that sort of core, that's the soul of the community alive, is critical. I mean, some of the changes we've seen, obviously, there's changes in the platform when it becomes acquired. There's changes of different, perspectives. There's growth in just the world of, online commerce and everything is, but there's always going to be something like that. There's always going to be this sort of new hot button thing. We're going to be talking about headless or composable or AI. It's like AI just was invented, I guess. It hasn't been around since like whatever. But and those are fun things to talk about, and they're great to explore, and they're important to constantly be bringing more people into those conversations. But I think the thing that is the most important piece is just keeping that common thread. And through in-person contact, through human to human contact. And, I mean, like when I met you, it was like, well after dinner, and it was, we were like, what, you were waiting for an Uber or something. And I was, so it's just like those little things, you don't get that when you're doing something online, right? You don't just bump into somebody sitting on the same bench or kind of walking to the bathroom at the same time or whatever, like those things don't happen. unless you kind of keep that in-person thread. So.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, the changes I've seen over the years with Meet Magento New York, the event has only grown. So in terms of ticket sales, we're at, was it twice where we were last year at this time?
A
So
little bit
that's
over,
fantastic.
actually.
And then the response to the call for talks, it really was overwhelming. At one point, when we had various rounds, so we were sending the submissions to our reviewers, and at one point I sent over 100 talks, and the reviewers were like, were you holding out on us? There's a lot more in this round. They just kept coming in. So the enthusiasm is there. I think this is going to be the biggest event ever. And that's fantastic. I cannot wait.
Mark, one thing I will note too on the topic of kind of changes is like, I think there's been sort of, fluctuations and people have a lot of, there's uncertainty, especially after, there's change and, acquisitions and different, different characters and different players. And, people always move around in our ecosystem. They go to other platforms. They go from a platform to an SI to an agency to, whatever, starting their own companies. But I have noticed over like, I would say this year itself, there was a little bit more sort of like concern and uncertainty. And then as I'm tracking through like Meet Magento UK and Meet Magento Singapore, which I think is happening right now or just wrapped, there's sort of this resurgence of energy and like commitment to the Magento community that I've just noticed over these past like month, really. And it's tangible. People that I heard specifically, and I'm seeing posts on LinkedIn, I'm having conversations with them personally that were kind of a little bit more sort of cautious, maybe is the nicest way to put it, but even feeling like they were moving into another direction, have kind of like come back together. And I don't know if y'all have seen that too as well, but it's been like over the past like really few weeks and couple months.
Yeah, well, you've been around the last decade, right? How many times has Magento died?
Right. Yeah.
And PHP, I've been a PHP developer for 20 years. I don't know how many times it's died, and it's just kind of laughable, really.
Yeah.
I've personally seen it, just continue to thrive, and great momentum, great just energy going on right now.
Maybe that should be the name of like the theme of Meet Magento New York 2024. Magento is dead, like just I'm calling it like the irony, because everybody that's been around for so long just understands that irony, because we've all heard it and we're all like, I don't know. Some of us, I don't know. I never really believed it the first time, but people buy into it and they think it is, and then
here we are. Still chugging along.
Oh, I don't want to forget to mention this, Mark, if I may throw this in here. So yes, there's a new host, but it hasn't really changed. So one of the reasons I approached Above the Fray, well, actually I approached Noah, is that Noah is on the Magento Association. So he is on the membership committee at MA for how long, Noah? Do you remember?
A couple years. Yeah, a couple years now.
Yep. And I'm on the events committee and the D&I committee. And, I've been a part of the MMA for some time, but I felt like he understood the philosophy of the event. So it hasn't changed, really. I think the spirit of the event is still there, and we're all working really hard to maintain that.
So about Above the Fray. So can you, I know it's new host this year. So how did that whole collaboration get started? And, how has it been changing since Meet Magento New York first started back in 2014 too?
Yeah, well, so we're 6 years old, Above the Fray. We just had our 6-year anniversary in June. Aaron and I, of course, been working together for over a decade in, for various capacities. But, I think the piece that Marsha just mentioned that, people have said, in fact, I've had other agencies that I work with that, wanted to sponsor or to attend or to promote and be like, but, this is Above the Fray thing. And I'm like, what? No, like, that's not like, that just means we're putting in, getting less sleep than most people to put this on, and putting in a lot more elbow grease, but it wouldn't work if that was a thing, if it was an agency putting on an event, like that's basically counterintuitive to the whole sort of soul of the event itself. And like like I said, when Marsha approached me, we had worked together sort of on different committees. We knew of each other. Marsha is a global force that, most folks know of Marsha. And so I was, very happy when she reached out and kind of mentioned the idea of it. And we tried to figure out sort of which way that could work best. And then we figured having her come on full time to help produce this, and then have the firepower sort of behind it, and the folks on our team, so our digital marketing team, our design team, the obviously engineering for stuff like when we're putting up websites and things like that, and our client services team. I mean, really, it's been a full team effort for us, and we had to be very conscientious of that, right? I mean, this actually, Marsha inconveniently approached us after budget was already set for this year, and like the year's plan was already laid out. So I am actually really impressed that I was able to get the other stakeholders' approval at my company to take this on, because it's not a small thing at all. It's a big it's a big undertaking, and it took us sort of readjusting our approach to 2023. We had a whole event plan of all these things we were going to be going to, and we had to cut a lot of those out to focus our energy and time and bandwidth into putting this on. But it is a labor of love, and that's what we're in it for. And that's why we made the decision to do it. I've taken on, I take on the strategic alliance role at our company. And so, I get to have an excuse to talk to partners that otherwise maybe we wouldn't be doing so much business together for one reason or another. We wouldn't have a reason to engage as much. And there's a conversation now to be had, and I get to learn about their organizations, their businesses, and strengthen our partnerships that we have across the board, and not just in the U.S. And I think that's one of the parts that I love about it the most, is the international component of it. We're an organization that has folks in 8 different countries. We have brick and mortar offices in 3 different countries, but that doesn't mean that we always get to engage with the greater ecosystem outside of that, of our offices. And this has really just helped to, connect us to all those different points on the planet, which, it's not to get, too esoteric about it, but it's actually one of the reasons that I started a company, was to be able to do stuff like that, and to be able to really create a global, connection around the world where we can, build really cool stuff, with, the best and brightest wherever they happen to put their head down when they sleep. So,
right. So Meet Magento New York 2023. What do you think is new and exciting and different about the show this year than perhaps happened in other years past?
I am obviously brand new to putting this on, right? So it's all new and exciting for me from the perspective that I'm at. But we decided to do one major change this year that has never been done, I think, in the 9 years that Meet Magento New York has been happening, which is to do a 2-day event. And that sounds like 1 day to 2 day, but that's actually a pretty major undertaking. It's, as far as budget, as far as, speaking slots and everything, venue and after parties and everything that you can imagine, doubles. And it doesn't really double. I think it's more exponential. But I think it was the right decision. And we're super, just based on how many speaker applications we had alone, we know that was the right decision. And so I think that's pretty exciting. It gives people a chance to spend an extra night in New York. It's right before the weekend. I know I'm staying for the weekend with my family. My wife, who's our CFO, is actually going to have her birthday a couple days after. So, you can make an event of it. And that gives you that many more chances to, have the after parties and the pre-parties and, all of that fun stuff. So, that's definitely an exciting part.
Yeah. It seems like I never stay long enough for these.
Right.
events. There's always something going on after or before or something.
Yeah. And if flights are delayed, then you get stuck, in town even longer. So which happened recently.
That's one of the reasons we moved to a full 2-day agenda. And I can't stress that enough. It's not a day and a half. It's a full 2-day program, 8 to 5 or 8 to 5:30. Day 2 will probably start a little later, I'm sure folks will party hard at the end of day one. Yeah. So we'll start a little later on day 2, but it is 2 full days. And, I just feel like when we want to focus on ROI, and companies or individuals are spending a lot coming over to the city. So you want to have greater opportunity to network, to socialize, to do all the stuff they want to do. And what we found is that now that it's 2 full days, companies are approaching us about satellite events. So the main programs are October 10 and 11 with sponsors setting up on the 9th. But then there's, I'll let the hosts of those events get on social media and tell you about it. But there's probably going to be satellite events on the afternoon, then the evenings of October 9 and 10 with our official after party on the evening of October 11. So it's going to be more like, 3 full days of activities. So boundless opportunities here. It's going to be epic. Yeah. And,
Has to be.
yeah. And I think that, coupled with that, this is not new, but it's something that I want to mention because I don't feel like we take advantage of it. So we have a 2-day agenda. With the social events, it's probably 3, but it's not just a 2 or 3 day event. We have a networking portal, and that will be open very, very soon. And what that means is everyone who registers has the opportunity to network with everyone else who has already registered. Yeah, sure, it means they need to go in and create their profiles, but in terms of ROI, that's huge. You can start setting up your meetings in advance. So, sorry for the plug, get registered because your networking starts right now. You don't have to wait for October 10 and 11. You get on the networking platform, get to know the folks who are there, start setting up meetings. You can have meetings in the platform before the event or, set them up outside, however you wish. But the networking opportunities already exist.
With everything going on too, I think there is a lot of time where you can chat with everyone else that you want to chat with too, right. and communicating and talking and setting up meetings and dinners or with whoever is just priceless for a lot of these.
Think of the number of people who will be there. Even 2 days, it's not enough to set up all the meetings you need. So the networking portal just extends the value of the event. It really is fantastic. And we spend a lot of time trying to select one, which one has all the best features that we need. I think this one is great. It's a similar one to what RICE used, but we are using more of the features of it. Great search capacity. I think it's a real added benefit.
And you mentioned everyone that's going to be there. So can you get in the kind of this? I know sponsors are probably still going on, still signing up, but what are some potential sponsors and partners that are going to be involved with the event this year?
We have a lot of, the supporters we had in previous years. So Adobe, PayPal, Vertex, they're always at a high level. They're back again. In addition, Bold Commerce is at a platinum level this year. We have newcomers as well, like Channel Engine, Shipper HQ, M2E Pro. ScandiWeb has supported us before. They are back again. Platform.sh, ShipStation, iCube, Avalara. There's lots more and lots that we're speaking to. So that is really motivating, I have to say. The conversations we're having, the enthusiasm to support the event. And it's not just about booths, right? Not everyone wants a booth at the event. So we're working with teams to figure out what is the best approach for you? What do you need? How do we help you get the most from Meet Magento New York? Based on your team size and your intended output. The response has been fantastic. We still have some sponsorship booths open, so we'd love for folks to reach out to us. Our website is meetmagento.nyc.com, and there are email addresses in the footer. Please reach out. Let's talk. I look forward to it.
as a merchant, it's great to meet these potential partners and everything at the booths. What are some other benefits of attending an event like this for a merchant and maybe even for developers? Because there's all different sorts of people attending these events and in different areas of expertise. So kind of what's the benefit for merchants, developers, and whoever else may think of attending?
Yeah, and I think that's because of the uniqueness of this event too. Because a lot of events you go to, and I'm in sales and marketing, so no knock on sales and marketing, but it's really everybody that's there is only sales and marketing, right? And with these Meet Magento events, Meet Magento New York, it is well attended by engineers, because a lot of that I think is because the content isn't just sort of window dressing. It's not just sort of like a sales pitch up on stage for 20 minutes or an hour or whatever. They actually are diving into some real topics, talking about real challenges. And so for everybody coming, you get to really experience the full spectrum of this kind of community that we're in. If you're a merchant and, we're bringing a lot of our merchants are coming with us as well. It's not just, let's go look for an agency to work with, or every agency is just breathing down our neck trying to sell us. It's like, okay, we're going to actually meet the people that are building the things. We're going to actually meet the other technology partners that are specializing in things that can provide ROI and value to our business, and develop those personal relationships too. Because being the one that does a lot of the partnerships at ATF and having done that, at my previous organizations, when you meet somebody and you have a personal relationship with them, and something goes sideways, because that's probably what we talked about, common threads, and probably one of the only other common threads is things will go sideways at some point. This is custom, development that we're doing, and pretty complex, environments. That knowing that person that you can text message them or call them, in the middle of the night, and they'll get up in their pajamas and, do something that help fix it. And that's a real story, actually. I remember when Buck from Avalera actually did that for me, and got up and drove to the headquarters in Bainbridge Island in her pajamas at midnight for one of our clients. And so, but those happen with personal connections, and that's a big advantage of it. We're going to have some of our, team from overseas flying out that actually is building, that builds these. And so you get to meet the people that are doing the work for you, or that could be doing the work. So, I think that's sort of something that people might not sort of, you look on it, you're like, oh, great, I'm going to get new business, I'm going to do this. But, connecting with the people that, both can build stuff for you and or have built it for you, there's a level of accountability that comes from that, face to face, right? Yeah. Break bread.
I've always identified as a developer, and I still remember, besides just the tech talks, just meeting our clients, and you never would think it's interesting as a developer, but it's still like some of my favorite moments is just meeting our clients at Imagine or Meet Magento.
Yeah.
It's great to see them face to face and put a face to the voice and emails.
Well, I guess that I could turn your question around back to you too. I mean, what do you see, Mark? Because you've been to these events quite a bit. What values do you see for folks that come to them?
Specifically for Meet Magento events, I've noticed that from a developer standpoint, the talks are so much more technical than other events. I don't really care for presentations that are just super high level. They don't get into the technical aspect, the programming aspect. So that's one thing I really enjoy about these events, as they don't just assume you're a newbie or a novice. Like, they'll get into code, sometimes live code it right on stage, talk about highly technical indexing or caching or some other, thing that's going on at the moment. So it goes highly technical, which I really appreciate over some other events. That's what I really, really enjoy.
It's good that there's the 3 tracks, too, because that technology track you don't find that as much, or maybe you have that at other events, but it's not really a technology track. It's, like you said, kind of that very high level. But then I think that for the folks that are coming that, that's going to kind of go over their head, or it's, like it's just not it doesn't relate as much. There is a solutions track, right? There is the business track. And so, I think that's the unique part is it has something for all the different folks that are coming. And some people want to go to, all three across it, but some are there for just one. So when you draw people that are maybe only interested in one of those tracks, you still have those common, areas where you get to meet them. And so normally, if you're not looking to bring having engineering, like heavy, talks and breakouts and all of that, then, folks won't come. And so you won't have a chance to like engage with that. It's just, I love that aspect of it.
I think that has a lot to do with our selection process as well. So our team, it's 6 people, and it's a combination of merchants, highly technical folks, business-focused folks. We try to make it very diverse. So the selection is very diverse. And yes, every half hour, there's a choice of 3 different talks, which is fantastic. Then, the team we have are making sure that it's cutting edge stuff. What are the hot issues right now? And we're making sure that is on stage. But I don't want to lose what we started speaking about. So merchants. So one of the things we worked really hard at, not that we didn't in the past, is true engagement by merchants. So we tried really hard to focus on the folks who are using the platform on a daily basis. They should be, by and large, driving the agenda in a huge way. So we wanted them to be on stage, and we have lots of talks submitted by merchants. And Noah has spent a lot of time, trying to work with merchants and guide them if they needed help to submit a talk and get their thoughts, their successes, and their struggles on the stage. So that's a huge benefit, right? So merchants attending the event will learn from other merchants on the stage, and the agenda over 2 full days has enough time built in so that there's also informal learning, the informal track in the hallways during lunch and tea breaks, right? So that is a huge plus. And then because we're trying to create this inclusive environment, you get to know as many people as possible. It's like speed dating the Magento ecosystem, right? So you don't know what you don't know. That's the opportunity that Meet Magento New York presents. Get to know who's out there. What are the services available? What am I doing with X, Y, or Z? Things I haven't thought about. It's such a fantastic opportunity.
Just earlier today, Marsha, when we were speaking with there's a merchant that's going to be doing a talk or is submitting for a talk, I think one of the feedback that I gave them after they were kind of asking, a little bit more like, does this work? Was like, talk about the problems and the challenges. Everybody wants to talk about the successes and the things that went well, but anybody that's been doing this long enough knows that that's not really the whole story, right? I mean, you don't actually have to be doing it that long to know that. So we're really pushing for folks to talk, to kind of bare their soul a bit about, here's where I stumbled, here's where things failed, here's where things broke, here's where everything fell apart, or maybe not everything, but this particular, and then like, how'd you overcome that? Because I think those are the things, like you talk about going to presentations or talks that are just high level. You also don't want to go to just somebody tell you everything that went well, because we know that's not the truth. Like we want to hear the truth. And we don't just want to hear, people placating, us when we're sitting there in the audience and kind of nodding off and working on our emails or thinking about beers afterwards or whatever. We want to hear the juicy stuff. How'd you break it? What stupid things did you do? And how'd you become smarter through that process? Because all of us have done that, and all of us know that's the real life, especially in this community.
That is a great segue into the next section.
Well,
just what do you, or the next question I have for you is, what do you see as like the biggest opportunities and challenges that face Magento and Magento users today? And like, where do you, related to that, where do you see like innovation happening, the other end of just innovation happening in the community and the Magento ecosystem as a whole?
How long is this show?
Well,
I I think the unique place that like an event like Meet Magento New York sits is it's between that open source and that corporate community, right? It's and you kind of both of those communities are really in a lot of ways tied to each other, and can support each other and can help grow each other's livelihoods, businesses, kind of missions and business and life. And but also there's an inherent conflict there too. And so that's always been a sort of a source of friction. And so I think that's always something that's being mitigated. And I think it's always a source also of innovation. I'm seeing so many different, people forking code and branching off and doing, new associations, new organizations, sometimes heated debates over, social media channels, but it's all for the better, right? Like I said, when we all sit there and have the same opinion and agree on things, nothing new happens. Nothing great comes out of that usually. And so I see all of these sort of friction points as opportunities. I don't know if that was too high level of an answer, but
that makes sense.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Is there, before we get, do you have any closing thoughts before wrap things up? It's been a great discussion so far. We touched base on so much about Meet Magento. I just wanted to see if you had any other additional thoughts.
I think I do. I touched on this a little earlier. So I think my biggest message is this is a community event. And it's only a community event if we all contribute. It's not my event or Above the Phrase event. We really do want to work toward an event that's powered by the people. And what that means is contribution by everyone. It's not necessarily just sponsorship and submitting talks and speaking on stage, but those are huge, right? Those are huge contributions. The cost of this event is massive, and most of that is covered by sponsors. That is true. Ticket costs are really low. It represents a small fraction of our per head cost. And sponsorships cover the bulk of just the 2-day event. All of the planning and management and marketing and everything that goes into the months of work prior to the event, all of that is covered by ATF. But, the event itself, we work really hard to reach out to as many people as we can. And hopefully we do reach everyone we need to. But I think that's quite a daunting task. So we need the help of the community to reach out to others, especially newcomers in the community. Can you just imagine the combined effect of each of us reaching out to one or just two people? We can grow this event, and through that, grow the community, right? That's where it's at. For me, it's about supporting the e-commerce ecosystem at large, and that's what helps us thrive in our own spaces. It's not just about, narrowing that focus to just your company at this 2-day event. So, if I'm getting something wrong, if anyone has ideas, they're welcome to reach out to me. But, and I get that not everyone is really busy and they don't understand the philosophy of the event, but I often have people say to me, just give me a talk and I'll help you with the marketing. That's not really how we want it to work. And also, it's not really fair to anyone, right, to be giving talks away. The whole approach is support your ecosystem. We hope you have the time to do that. Help us reach out to others. It's about the combined effect. We need the participation of everyone. Let us know if you have ideas. Let us know if you have unique sponsorship thoughts. We're welcome. We'll get on a call and figure out how we work through that. But yeah, make it a real community event. I hope I've stressed that enough.
Great. Yeah, I'm so impressed at how you were able to keep costs low too, versus some other events. I mean, it's significantly less than other events, which is awesome. So it makes it very easy to attend. I think
sweat equity, and also, but it is, we can keep them low because when you're bringing us on your show, we have other sponsors and also people that aren't sponsors that are just doing it that are getting the word out. You know, it's this kind of community driven attention to it versus, you know, spending, you know, tens or hundreds of $1,000s on a PPC campaign or something like that. You know, we're actually having people do it organically. And so, and it's also by the same token, the people that are coming. I mean, I'm in some WhatsApp threads, and you're seeing it on Twitter. Like, people they understand it. They don't need like the fancy penthouse suite, you know, hotels and things like that. And some of us do, some of us might want to, but you know, not everybody. It's like, the idea is, it's like, we're coming for the content, for the people, you know, that are there. And, you know, the other stuff is great, but it's more of that window dressing again. And so, you know, it's kind of part and parcel for the entire event, sort of the soul of the event itself. And I really didn't get to experience it as deeply as I have now, being inside the belly of that beast. It's fantastic. But, you know, on that token, on that note, I really appreciate you having us on here. This is what it takes, right? To sort of connect with folks, even as many people as Marsha knows, or I know, or, you know, our sort of sphere of influences. We all have our own, and there's lots of intersection, but there's also lots of uniqueness. And so, you know, that's what it's going to take.
So keep in mind, New York in October will be more expensive than it is right now. So the team is working really hard on a room block. Once you get news of the room block, please do book it right away. We're working to get, you know, the best deal at a good hotel that's a few minutes walk from New World Stages. So, yep, in our experience, that time of year is incredibly expensive. So you want to strike while the iron is hot.
I know I've already bought my ticket, my airline ticket and hotel. So
keep in mind, everyone, Meet Magento New York is in its 9th year running. It is the largest dedicated Magento and Adobe Commerce event in North America. You want to be there October 10 and 11. Watch our agenda for satellite events. It's going to be epic, and we will see you there.
Great. Just to recap, Meet Magento New York will be held by Above the Fray on October 10th and 11th, 2023. It's being held at the state-of-the-art, iconic off-Broadway theater called New World Stages. So yeah, to buy more tickets or get more info about the event, you can go to meetMagentoNYC.com. I'll be there. Very excited to meet and hope to meet everyone watching this video. And just want to thank Marsha and Noah for taking the time to chat here, and hope to see you all really soon at Meet Magento New York.